What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Bloom podcast episode. Today, we are greeted by probably one of my biggest, closest mentors, Goran Vejzovic in the white, and a special guest, Shaz.
Hello.
So for people listening right now that don't know, Goran was kind of like obviously one of my mentors throughout my life, but the biggest thing was like I remember working with you and just like you holding me accountable for every single little thing I did, and just like being borderline scared to like mess up, like running through my head like 5 times in a row, like how can I make sure that nothing goes wrong? And sure enough, something would still go wrong. But I remember at the trucking company, and I guess even a little bit at VSM, it was just like you were very like, I don't know, I can hear you say it right now, like, I don't know, just do it. Just do it. Like it was just execution to the highest level. Tell me what, like, and I have one of my best friends, Blake. He tells me every day, he's like, you're just so good at executing. You're so good at it. And I think like maybe you instilled that in me, but tell me why that's so important today, why that's so important in business, what that does.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I didn't know that stuck out that much, but that's awesome. Why that's important to me is the accountability factor, right? It is a big deal. And for you to, at least in my eyes, I always said how you do anything is how you do everything. So all those little cracks add up to a break, right? So sometimes, it seems like something is such a small deal. Like, I don't know, not knowing the Wi-Fi password, for example, right? Something so small and stupid, but those things can actually lead to something big. And I think being vigilant and knowing kind of what's happening, what you need to take care of, and the responsibility that you have, not just to yourself, but also to the others within the organization, within that team, is, to me, from a leadership perspective, I have to make sure that everyone, including myself, feels the same way. So you're never thinking, oh, if I miss it, someone else will get it. You want to make sure the buck stops with you.
Yeah. Like everyone's kind of holding up their side of the pillar, and if one pillar goes down,
then you don't have the right team, right? It's never going to work. Even if you have people rowing in the same direction, if one person is not doing their job, you're not going to go as fast or as far, right? So how do you make sure that everybody is actually motivated to row?
Yeah, that's a big thing, is motivation. Like I feel like I've kind of live and die by the line that like I can't make you do anything.
That's 100% true, man. It's how do you make somebody care, right? And you're fighting that free will that everyone has because you can't influence their free will. And how do you kind of go, and maybe not around it, but how do you deal with it on day-to-day level? Because that's everyone does, right? You're part of a team. You engage people left and right. Yeah. And it's never really like, I don't know, for me, I always think about it, and how do you motivate somebody is really just ask them like, hey, what's your purpose? Like, why is this important to you? This particular thing. It doesn't have to be your pinnacle in life, but why do you want to be here? And those answers have to line up with the leadership and everybody else. Once they do, then you're on a good path. What do you think?
To kind of piggyback off of that, I think a good summary of it is, getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the important piece. If somebody doesn't want to do something, they might get it done, but they're not going to get it done in a way that is going to be improved upon over time. They're not going to get it done in a fashion that's acceptable to the standards that we're holding each other accountable to. And I think part of that too is and Goran does this really well, just set the understanding amongst the team, that, hey, if I mess up, if you see me doing something that's opposite of what I'm telling you, or, there's an area where I can improve and make things better, let me know. Like, I'm open to that constructive criticism, because this isn't a boss employee situation. This is everyone trying to level each other up. Yeah. And so making that, statement and being open to that usually disarms a lot of individuals to be able to develop the rapport to respectfully engage in that kind of discussion, so that that accountability is mutual and not just one direction.
Yeah, I think And that's huge. And just thinking back to the motivation too, like everyone's motivated by different things. And I've found that out like the hard way. Like it was like here's a little story. 2 weeks ago, I got this project, and it was a project I was going to be out of town. I didn't want to do it, but I was like, oh, I'll tee up one of my buddies. I'll get a great budget on this project. I'll tee up one of my buddies, got a $3,500 project. You go shoot this, like it's a quick little recap video of this like air show thing. You go there for 4 hours, shoot it, $3,500. Like a lot of video people like never even see $3,500. So it's like, I'm like, perfect. I text like 6 people, none of them wanted it. I was like, how, like, I guess I don't want to say I'm like motivated by money, but I think money is definitely like has gotten me to say yes to things I probably wouldn't have said yes to without the dollar signs. So it's kind of interesting because I think everyone's motivated by different things, and I just couldn't believe that no one would say yes to it. Literally couldn't believe it.
You know what time it is with those people now, right? Like
what time is it?
It's time for you to text other people.
Yeah.
Because
take them off the vendors list.
Well, if there is a group of people who have previously mentioned to you that they'd be interested in you, sending work their way or whatever, right? I assume that's the context you were referring to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If they're not responding, did they even respond?
No, they responded. They just said like, nah, like.
Now what?
Why does it even matter? I mean, you could just, if you have a list of 20 people, you get the job, you send them, whoever responds first. It doesn't even matter what the other responses are, really. You just move on to the next.
That's true.
And you got to accept that,
and then
somebody might be busy and they don't want to deal with it. I know a lot of times, like, it ain't all about the money, right?
Part of it, though, is I think communicating those, like, sure, you're not liable to tell everybody every reason or anything, but being fairly communicative with regards to, just why, just like not, no. Well, okay, is it no, I'm busy today? Is it no, don't text me again about this? Is it, what is it,
Yeah.
Because you want to shrink that list down to your go-tos.
I don't know. I think it should just, from what I heard in that particular scenario, right? If you have a bunch of people that are in a similar business and you can't take it, or if you want to pass a job along and earn a little bit later on or whatever, it's fine to just grow the Rolodex and accept that some people will not be able to do it for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter about the money. Yeah, I don't think you need to like start an argument or like a bickering match. You
just didn't.
You basically just BCC everybody, and first one to respond gets the job. And
make sure it's a BCC.
Yeah.
Don't be a clown.
and forget that whatever other people. Don't let that bother you, or even slow you down, or even become a thought. Who cares? Just keep it moving.
No, it didn't bother me, but I just couldn't believe that. Like, I know some of these kids. I know some of them.
I know, but that you're just trying to influence somebody's life, right?
That's true.
And why? Like, what's the purpose? There is no purpose. Like,
it
doesn't matter.
Besides, like, trying to help the client, right?
The guys that are saying no, and if they have a problem, they're gonna want to help themselves first, right? You can't really influence that. So
that's true.
That's true.
Again, just focus on getting more jobs and sending them to other people.
It's kind of like anything else, right? Like, you need something done around the house or whatever, and you need to call somebody. It's like, if one person doesn't call you back, you don't just badger them and be like, why aren't you picking up, right? You move on to the next vendor.
Nor do you call them and try to coach them on how they should want it all the time.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't think it was like the individual saying no that got me mad. I think it was like the fact that like it was just constant. It was no after no after no after no. And I was like, if I was in town, I would be doing this project myself.
Why even, right, but why even?
It's not even a big deal.
Why even think about it?
I just go down that path. Well, the whole point and to tie it all back was like the motivational side of things. Like, that money didn't motivate those people. Something else is out there that's motivating them. And if I found that, they might have all said yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was that important, right? You got to know, people's why, or what their actual needs are, right? So you can try to meet them. But again, you don't net any dollars from doing that. You net dollars from actually, passing on a job to someone who wants to do it.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my little rant on motivation and stuff. But yeah, I think it's a tough battle. You motivate different people in different ways, and that's just kind of the moral of the story. Personally, that's what I've noticed so far.
It'd be much easier to get, an answer, and it's natural to want to just hear the answer, right? If like, hey, I have a problem motivating people, and you're like, okay, here's a solution, and then you do that solution. A lot of times, and most of the times in real life, in business especially, it just doesn't work like that, right? So do things that you can control and you have control over, which is what? Yourself,
Yeah.
Right? Now imagine if you can instill that message and mission to everyone else, like friend circle or business circle, whatever. It just all boats will be rising, right?
Yeah.
So I think, again, it's important to do it inwards first. That way you can actually make an outward change.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think that kind of wraps that whole segment up. I mean, that's makes good sense. And I think I don't know. There's no right or wrong answers, like Goran just said.
Yeah, right.
It's just you'll
conversation.
Yeah.
Opinions, my opinion.
So switching gears a little bit, you guys have both. Shaz was just talking about, a couple years ago when I was doing like the Facebook stuff, and I even remember when Goran used to work at T-Mobile. Like, there's all this stuff that you're constantly changing. That was supposed to be a joke. No one laughed. Didn't you work at T-Mobile, Goran?
Yeah, but I was like, when you were like 2. I was like, what?
But yeah, no, obviously you guys have been serial entrepreneurs your whole lives. You constantly
we're old.
changed.
You could just say, yeah, we're
changed
old.
things, changed like careers and stuff like that. How do you stay motivated? How do you navigate new industries? How do you like have confidence in like, okay, say tomorrow I'm a video production guy right now, but then tomorrow I want to do this. How do I know I have the confidence? How do I make that identity shift?
Man, that's a good one. If I had that answer or that pill, that'd be great, right?
You've done it like 10 times.
Well, no, I mean, for me, I don't know if you want to answer it first because I kind of answered the other question.
Sure.
You go ahead.
Okay. I want to say I've had an entrepreneurial spirit for a very long time, but I haven't been a serial entrepreneur for my entire life. I started out in corporate America. I was an electrical engineer. And I did that while I was building a number of other products. I mean, I was out here designing a phone case that eventually got sold at Target and Apple stores while I was still taking contracts in engineering, because, my motivations and what I needed in order to feel secure, and that was a lot different than many other entrepreneurs, even Goran, who I've spoken to, right? There's this mentality out there, I think, of like, you go all in. If you're not all in, burn the boats, they say, right? And that works for a lot of people. The problem is, for me, it didn't work like that, right? I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So I always had to have...
Going all in with what?
What's that?
Going all in with what?
Well, just going all in terms of like, quit everything else you're doing, spend all your time, all your energy, and every penny you have on this one goal, and then succeed at it, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I've always been kind of, frankly, a risk-averse person. Now, admitting that is tough because the industry of, let's just say, motivation, which I was into, or business or entrepreneurship, it doesn't reward that behavior. The reward is always about, the rah-rah, I left everything in order to do this, and, thank God it worked out. But for me, it wasn't like that. So stomaching that and being able to, I always had to have multiple irons in the fire, right? Until I felt like something gave me the satisfaction of continuing to do it to a point where I can say, okay, this is my thing. Once I was able to kind of emotionally get over that hurdle, me personally, then I began to do that more and more and more until, I realized something about myself. And that was that, again, personally, I want to say I play a great supporting role. So the fact that I'm entrepreneurial and I'm an entrepreneur is really lended to the people that I partner with. The Gorans, the Antonios, the Darios of the world. Well, not of the world. Those are pretty much my only friends.
Yeah.
But
so you're saying like you have like a curated friend group that's kind of like entrepreneurial, and because everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, you guys can kind of put something together that works.
Exactly.
And
right?
you don't have to risk the whole farm.
Well,
on
for
one
me,
thing.
that's exactly right. Like, I knew that, for example, I had this, analytical, mind that does calculations and whatnot. And I had tried on numerous occasions applying that in various capacities, sometimes taking it as far as going to market with the product and whatnot. But I realized, for me, doing those things alone wasn't to go back to what you were saying, it wasn't motivating enough for me. Like, just being able to do what I wanted on my terms, it wasn't everything to me.
Yeah.
What was, though, was being able to do stuff like that with the people that I cared about and kind of grow with each other and utilize each other's skills in such a way that we all benefit from it. And that's where I found the magic, you know, and now we're in a number of different industries, but it's all because we're all, I don't want to say experts, but specialists in something. We're all passionate in other things. We have conversations like this all the time. We're talking, you know, from jokes to philosophy to politics over a badminton game or something, right? Yeah. And it's like, that's where more of that cohesion occurs, and you develop stronger bonds to be able to take more risks. And that, for me, that's how that happened. Like, it wasn't like one day I'm just taking all the risk, right? It was just like this wave that slowly built, and now we got a tidal wave.
Yeah. Well, now you guys are in a ton of different industries. For the people, is that cool if you tell them all the industries you guys are in?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess restaurant, hospitality, transportation, logistics, warehousing, and then real estate kind of encompasses all of that. We have side projects that are business investing based.
Yeah. It's a lot of industries. How do you this is what I don't understand about you guys is like, how do you juggle everything? Because I'm running a pretty simple business, just a very transactional video production business. I don't understand how you guys are like changing gears and managing all this stuff and then still like being home at like 2:30 on a Friday. Like, how does that? How does that
podcast
happen?
was at 3:30, so I had to show up early.
I just like don't understand how you like juggle everything, and I think that's obviously like the question's different for everyone. Like Joe Rogan asked that question to Elon Musk, and like, how does that guy juggle everything? It's probably like that's a whole nother level as well. But like, yeah, how do you guys find that you juggle and balance everything?
You know, you don't. It kind of just happens. You go into these different business ventures and you connect one piece to a bigger whole, and then that entire whole becomes like a mechanism, right? That mechanism runs all of it, and one helps the other. So you're never really just like on an island by yourself. Then you hop on this new island, right? You gradually build bridges to connect, and you know there are relationships that get forged there for all of those things to really be in sync. And, you know, to me, like, again, you don't notice taking on more balls as you're juggling, right? You're just doing the same motion. It's just like more balls flying in the air, right? So I think it's going to be organic if, you know, that's the real answer that you want. You know, it doesn't happen, you know, now when you're, you know, 23, 24. It may happen, you know, 5-6 years down the line where you have multiple different businesses in different industries with different employees who may not know each other, but you'll have this commonality maybe in some administrative workers or someone that's in accounting that will share this kind of like, or have this bridge between all of it. And then you'll find yourself, well, wait a minute, how do I do it organically? Like,
yeah.
You have to go to step 1, 2, 3 to get to step 5.
Do you think that's like inevitable though? Like that gradual kind of like growth and intertwining things? Like I guess it's probably not inevitable that I'd be in a different industry someday, but like I think
it depends
with an entrepreneurial mindset, like I think there's just no way I wouldn't be.
It depends who you are, right? Everyone's answer is going to be different. But you know, if you label yourself an entrepreneur or an independent business owner, you really are identifying as somebody who is into bearing new risk or more risk in any venture, right? The bearer of risk, like the true meaning of entrepreneur. So you always are kind of in that mode.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
And, you know, deciding which direction to take it in is really, to me, again, becomes organic. As you kind of make 10 mistakes and then you learn, and you make 10 more and you learn more.
But then how do you know when to pivot? Like when we were doing the trucking and we were logistical team, and then you came to one day and you're like, I'm starting a pizza place. And I'm like, how the heck did you just decide that?
Well,
you know, and like you had some ties and connections and stuff, but
yeah, I mean, I'm naturally interested in everything, right? Or I may be interested in something that I don't even know tomorrow, and I'll naturally just drift towards it, right? And not everybody's like that, right? Not every entrepreneur, business owner. To me, like living and variety is kind of like the spice of life, right? So living, working, you know, different places, different people, that is a reward because you get a different outcome every single day. The reason why people want to be entrepreneurs, they don't have to go to a traditional 9-to-5 job where it's the same thing on repeat. And that's really, yeah. If you're a small business owner, that's inevitable, right? You're going to associate with other small business owners. You'll be inundated with opportunities, right? And you're going to want to take other opportunities that maybe you didn't think that you had an interest in, right? But now all of a sudden you do. Right. And, you're like, oh, yeah, I do like pizza. I've always been interested. How can I make that a thing? Do I want to make it a thing? And to me, like, I didn't go and buy a franchise. Right. I didn't go buy an existing business. I really just went to my network, my close friends. And I'm like, hey, here's an idea. You guys have something already. How can we work together to make something anew and really be in that process of doing something with your friends or people that you get along with?
And just to be clear, like, sometimes it's just getting involved with that network. And I want to take a kind of a sidebar and say I hate the term network because it entails this utilitarian view of people of like, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
Right. And it's less about a network. It's more about a group of trusted individuals, like I don't want to be corny, but like a circle of trust.
Yeah.
Right. It's super corny.
I feel that though. Like I hate networking events personally.
Correct. Because most people they're looking out for themselves, and that automatically means that they're not looking out for anybody else. And that's predatory, right? Now I understand
it's forced.
Exactly. And I understand why no one's going to be out there like, how can I help you? How can I help you? Right.
Yeah.
But the reality is that everyone's good at something. And so show up in a way that's demonstrative of what you're good at and that you're a trustable individual, but that shouldn't have to be a manufactured attempt. Like if you're a trusted person, it's going to naturally come off that way. And every relationship that you hold in business or personally, it's going to unfold itself. Right. Yeah. And people are going to hear about that.
Networking and like the most, I don't know, common sense now and people getting together is like really it's a mechanical or event that you're trying to force something to happen, which it may happen. We just don't work like that. You want it to be organically. I can tell you just from my experience, some of the if you quantify biggest deals in dollar value were done in a impersonal setting, right? Yeah. Or they even came about not through a networking group, not through some kind of a business process. They were all they happen organically from, you being who you are in the world and people know of who you are and what you do. And then they connect with you naturally. And hopefully something becomes of that. But I just don't see like how you can, like you want to do it, for ease, right? You're like, oh, if I get a bunch of, business-minded people in one room, like just by logic, that makes sense. They're all going to link up together and you're going to start many more businesses and the group is going to be better for that. Yeah. But it's manufactured and you can tell as a person, right, that it's not genuine. And when things are not genuine, you lose interest. So even if you are in that setting, you're just like your interest level goes from here all the way down. And you just kind of go about your day. But if it's done in like a spontaneous or more of an organic way, then that's maybe that's where the magic is.
Well, and that's how I feel. I feel like being in the video production space, I have this ability to like get inside businesses a little bit and almost like be their marketing and learn a lot about the business through the whole like process and stuff. And I feel like I've gotten like my network has grown basically just with the clients I've been working with. And like some of the clients have literally inspired me, and I try to not be too like squirrel, like let's go run and do this. But like some of the clients have inspired me where it's like, oh gosh, maybe someday, if I want to make a pivot, like that sounds pretty interesting what this guy does. And, I'd love to just meet with him and figure out like what he's doing and what he's working with. Similar to you guys with Antonio and how you guys started Tono Pizzeria and like all that was just like so organic and natural, I
think one thing I also want to highlight, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
No, I was just agreeing.
Is that, in the beginning stages, and there's no time frame here, right? But you're building yourself, you're building your skills, right? And then after that, you're building a business, right? After that, you're building systems, you're building other people. And those are the efforts that are rewarded with your ability to pivot with more ease. Because as Goran was mentioning, the systems that you put in place, and the system can simply be, hey, this person's good at this thing that applies to both businesses, right?
Yeah.
And they're motivated in that manner. And you already have a trusting relationship with them. So now they're handling a thing that you used to, I used to do all of our accounting.
Yeah.
Like constantly. I'm still kind of obsessive with it, right? And it took me talking to my friends, my partners, to be like convincing me like, hey, you need to like, let go a little bit and let people do what they want to do and be good at. And then I benefit from having more time to then apply my skills and my passions to another area of the business or another whole project, and it frees me up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's the systems. And the
I think
people.
I'm finally getting to that stage where I'm feeling more and more freed up, which is good. Like, I feel like I sit down at my desk some days and I get all my work done by like 11 and I'm like, oh my gosh. And like the team is grinding and like, then I feel really optimized. I'm like, wow. Like, and I can like look into like prospecting newer and better clients and look into things like that. But that's kind of interesting. You just broke down kind of the life cycle of it. I was just going to say, just because like still on the topic of like pivoting and stuff, like I've only been doing video production for like 3 years. And it's been an amazing 3 years, but it's like, that's why I was asking, like, how do you know when the right time to like try something else is or start something else and run them side by side? And I think it's probably, like you said, when you get to that point where you have a really good team, really good systems, and you feel a little bit comfortable letting go.
What a great answer from an engineering mind. It's very analytical. It's like when the team, it's like there and on hooks, and I'm just like, bro, you're gonna feel it, right? It's like a feeling, right? So that's the, our difference and the dynamic. Now imagine, 4 other people with different dynamics, and that all of those things need to happen to work together. And my answer is, different than his, but neither are really right or wrong. It's really just depends on the individual. Maybe you'll have a little bit of, both of the feel and the analytical thing. Like, oh, I have everything sorted. Now it's the time to do the switch.
But one thing I think we can agree on, and please feel free to correct me if not so, is you have to be able to zoom out. You have to be able to step out of however it is that you're thinking. If you're a you'll feel it person, if you're a, when you have these systems in place person, either way, being able to step out of that and just like have fun, right? Just have fun, not think about that stuff, because I know a lot of people, they're hyper obsessive about what they're doing to the degree that it's all they know. It's now their whole life. And I get it. Like the grit and the motivation, and especially when they have a path to move forward, like they can constantly be growing their business. But if that's all you're doing, are you human anymore? I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives, but you can only learn how to like figure out how to do something else and be something else and interact in different ways if you step out of what you convince yourself that this is your life purpose.
Yeah.
You have to constantly analyze that.
And I went through a phase, I think like the first year of doing this, like I went through a phase where I was so hyper focused on it. Like the thought of like going out and going to dinner, like sometimes it made me mad because like my friends are like, dude, where are you? We want to go to dinner. I'm like, dude, all I want to do is do this edit right now. Like I don't want to leave the house. I want to lock myself in this room. And I think you realize after like 6 months of that's just not sustainable. You're like, this is very, burnout. And like, I don't know, just kind of like, just socially you feel off, I think. At least for me, like I just socially felt off. I felt like I was just constantly trying to like do different things to fit in.
You're
socially.
a human being.
I like became awkward, and I was like never an awkward kid, and then like I became awkward, and I was like, what is happening? So
yeah, you're a human being. You need human interaction. You need to know yourself outside of the things that you tell yourself are important. If you don't know that, you're a robot.
Yeah.
And you're a really good one. Yeah. But isn't that what you're working to escape from being,
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, you get that like robotic sense of just like, I don't know, I think it's like a downward spiral, because I know people that do it still, and they've been doing it for years. I feel like even some people in my family have been like that, and that's what, I saw this thing on online, and this guy was saying like, he was like, people don't like change their lifestyle that much. And they'll like, you'll go home for like Thanksgiving. You'll be like, hey, auntie, what are you up to? Oh, same old, you know? And you hear that for like 5-6 years in a row. And you're like, you guys are still doing the same thing. Like, how is that even happening? Like, I'm just like, I could never do the same thing for that long.
You don't say that though, do you? Like
no.
Okay, I was gonna say that's not relationship building, man.
No, I'm like, sounds good, but like sometimes it's like that's when sometimes that's when I realize like how much I've grown. You know, I'm like, wow, these people have been doing the same thing they've been in the same place. You know.
You know what? That's okay.
Some people like that.
Yeah, like Goran was saying, like, you know, live and let live. There's some people who, you know, they clock in at 8:01 a.m. and they clock out at 5:01 p.m. and they love it. And that's great. The world needs that too. So I think this, like, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but there's this hyper focus again on, you know, oh, you got to go out there and live your dreams and you have to do this and you have to do that. But you're just pushing some group of people away from what they naturally incline towards. And that's not fair either, right? Like, it takes all types. So just being clear and getting an understanding, and it's okay to, I think, have those conversations with even them. But once a person is like, you know, very communicative about what type of life they want for themselves, it's like, all right, well, you know, let's talk about what that looks like.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know though. I don't think a lot of people know what kind of life they want for themselves. And then there's also the flip side of that where a lot of people try to tell people what kind of life they want. And then that's even more toxic. That's like the worst.
I agree.
Wanted to talk about, we got about 20 more minutes left. So I wanted to talk, this one thing I wanted to hit is like risk management. I know Goran said that was a big one before the podcast. It's just like managing risk, because I've been part of yours. You weren't part of Syndicate, but your probably riskiest adventure you ever went on. And I was part of it, calling truck drivers every day and stuff like that. Like, how do you manage that risk? Like,
man, that's I think everyone as a human being manages risk every day, right? Everyone's risk averse. You want to like survive. You want to, you know, not go hungry. So naturally, you're just hardwired to think like that from a instinctual basis. So why not just do that as well in business? So believe it or not, and I think this is a big misconception of the, you know, general public of entrepreneurs, where they just think they're gunslingers, right? When in fact, no matter like the style of thinking or how you analyze stuff, you know, because we're different, there's still a big level of every decision I make is a risk reward, the pros and the cons. Like I play mental chess with outcomes, right? To see what is probable, what could, become that I have to deal with. So, it may look like it just happens because you're, observing it, but there's actually a considerable amount of thought and really just discussions, not just by yourself, but also your business partners on how to proceed and where to proceed. Mm-hmm. The bulk of the time is spent on that process, right? So you're 90% thinking and lining up your shot, your target, your everything, right? And then the pulling of the trigger is at 10%.
Yeah.
That's the easy part. You open the business, you open the door, and you're like, okay, let's go. I'm open for business. But the bulk of that is really that iceberg effect where, the 90% of it or 80% is below the surface of what you actually see. So knowing to manage risk is really just instinctual for everybody. Now you just translate that from like I need to survive, not go hungry or whatnot, to business sense, where it's like, hey, should I do this business? What is the worst outcome? What's the best outcome? Where am I most likely to land? Is this worth the squeeze, right? Is it worth me, losing X amount of dollars and, but I'll have this experience, right? And most of the time the answer is yes, because just like anyone else here, you probably started, a bunch of different ventures. I've been involved in a ton since I was like 11 years old. And most of those ventures failed, right? But those are all data points that you take onto the next one to make it bigger, better, stronger, and then ultimately survive.
Yeah.
So it's acceptance of the fact that there will always be a risk. That's a needed ingredient for you to actually make it. If you don't have that, then everyone's running businesses and everyone's equally successful. So there's no barometer of who, there's like a hierarchy, right? Which doesn't exist. So you basically just make peace with that, hey, the fact that the risk is present means I'm on the right path.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's hard for me. I think like, and this might be type A of me to say, but like, I think it's hard for me to know like, okay, I have enough money to afford this. Or I think like the big one was like, okay, I have enough money for my first employee. Okay, I have enough money for my second employee. And then like your burn rate goes up and then you're just like, it just gets like making those decisions and managing risk. I feel like you never know. And it's like, it's hard. You can ask people and they won't.
One of your
really
decisions to go into that venture is like, hey, would I do this if money wasn't involved? Right. And it's one of the basic questions that a high school counselor would ask a lot of students is, like what do they want to do if they didn't need to work for money? Or what would you do if you didn't work for money? And there's all kinds of different answers, right?
Yeah.
Because, theoretically, everybody would say, I want to, do the bare minimum. Right. But how would that function in society if the ultimate answer was like, do what you want all the time? Right. So it's inevitable that you're going to come to that conclusion of, well, the risk that I don't want to take is the risk that I need to take for me to get to that next level. And then you can make a decision of like, okay, well, I'll just stay put and I'll not take that risk. And, people choose that. And that's not knocking them, but, they get what they, the consequences of their decisions.
Yeah.
Life based.
One of the things I think you touched on is like, when's the right time, and being, I don't know if I'm type A or not, probably, right? But
I'd say you are.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Laughter ensues,
Triple A.
peanut gallery. But the answer to that question is really what's on the other side of the risk, right? And how much, what is risk even defined as to you? Well, and this again sounds cliche, I'm full of platitudes today, but what's a bigger risk? Answering that question and being wrong, or never doing what it takes to answer that question and then being stuck with the life,
the regret of never trying.
Exactly.
Taking it. Yeah.
Right. And I think the fact that you're on that journey and asking that question answers it for you. Mm-hmm. I have to do something, because if I don't, I'm not who I say I am. I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
But sometimes, yeah, I like that. And I think sometimes things get so tight though, right? Where it's like, okay, this risk is going to make things even tighter and put my back up against the wall even more.
You can prepare for that risk though, right? Because you're planning for it. You know what the potential outcome could be. So is it a situation where you can take more time to generate other, avenues of revenue, maybe stockpile, just do something in order to mitigate that? Because you'll never completely obliterate the risk. Mm-hmm. But you can mitigate
more comfortability and room to like move a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
It feels so good. I've been there in my business career a few times, and it just feels so good.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you got a couple big checks in, and you're like, wow, like a lot could go wrong, and I'd still be safe.
But that's actually a really, it's an important thing to discuss, because, when I look at something like that, I'm like, all right, how do I utilize this to make this comfort bigger? Mm-hmm. Right. And if that means that I'm shrinking my comfort temporarily in order for bigger comfort later, I mean, the whole thing is delayed gratification.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game in business. Mm-hmm. Right. It's just that at some point that compression isn't as bad as it used to be.
Yeah.
Right. $10 was a thing one day. $100 is a thing another day.
Yeah.
1,000 is a thing another day.
And that's what's like, I think that's what's kind of been eating me alive lately a little bit, is that whole perspective on like money changes. Like you feel like, I don't know, I was talking to Goran about it earlier
off camera, and what he told me, I was like, you're insane for you to even think that you're in some kind of trouble. In fact, you should go even more in trouble so you offset the good times you're in.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what?
Well, I was like, here was the conversation. I was like, I drive this car, I have this amount of money, and I still feel like I'm just like in the tightest spot ever. And Goran was like, you're not, basically. And
I said, I was like, are you insane? And then I pointed to the facts. right? And I was like, anyone your age, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, your parents in your position would have been on a whole different mindset, totally opposite of you. And I'm like, and look where you're at, right? What you're basically are grasping for air when you don't need to.
Yeah.
And you want to ask yourself, well, why is that? Right? You know, when you should technically be comfortable and enjoying your day.
I would have told myself 3 years ago when I started this business that if I had the lifestyle I had now, I'll just be happy forever. That's the only thing that matters.
That's going to keep happening.
Right. All the time.
It's just always on to the next. Like,
that's
like
embracing that is
if you
the
make
answer.
100 grand, then you want 150. If you make 150, then you want 500. Then you want.
I mean, again, being human is recognizing that at any point you develop stagnation, you're done. So embracing, and when I say embrace, not like hearing those words and being like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but really like absorbing the identity that there's no end. The process is it.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, because if you stopped, and not to say it's just about the money, but of course the lifestyle, you know, what you find comfort, what are you doing along the way? Because, you know, the reality, and I don't want to turn this into like a morbid existential podcast, but like you could just be done, God forbid, you know, somebody could just, you know, they're done. And
okay.
Like they're dead.
I thought you meant like just leave this country, because I've thought about that too.
It's interesting that you read into done as the country. Why not the state or the city?
I don't know.
What's going
Never
on?
be seen again. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Little Soviet in you. No, I'm just kidding.
But no, that's true. Like, just
I mean,
it
could be over, right?
Yeah.
You could die, and we all have to again embrace the fact that that is a potential. So, am I living in a way, and are the relationships I'm curating such that I could smile in those moments, which we don't even know if we'd have, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's just what do you want out of life? Because it's very easy. We talk about this all the time, Goran and I. You know, it's very easy to say, well, if I had $1 billion, everything would be set. Well, would it though? Would it?
Not. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you see a lot of
You
people.
wouldn't have a purpose. Would you be fulfilled? I don't know. Maybe.
Exactly. So curating that purpose and understanding that it might not be like something that you finally get to achieve and do, and then even achievements and accolades, right? Even if they're like, no matter how outlandish they are, like let's just take Elon Musk for an example, right? Everyone was telling that dude he can't re-land rockets using reusable rockets, right? He did it. I mean, when you're doing something no one's ever done, no one's handing you a plaque, right? And even if they did, it sits on a shelf, collects dust. That can't be it. You can't just rely on, oh, I'm going to do this thing and, you know, everyone's telling me I can't do it, or even if they're not, it doesn't matter. The point is that you're trying every day, you're becoming a better person every day, and you're utilizing what you're doing in order to, you know, again, make you that better person, what that means to you. And the impact that you make as that better person on others around you, that to me is the measuring stick. Because if I become, you know, a trillionaire and I accomplish every goal I want, and I'm rude to somebody at a restaurant, and I'm not saying that because I'm in the restaurant industry, like, what's even the point? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like, dig my grave.
Yeah. No, that's
so. I love
that. That's my favorite point of the whole podcast.
I was going to add regarding Elon Musk, and it's crazy because you're like, oh, you know, if you were Elon Musk, everything would be fantastic, right? And you think about the fact that, you know, if like on our level, you're competing against the masses, and that is the drive that you have in your DNA as a human, the competitive spirit, right? And that's what kind of makes things worth living. Interestingly enough, Elon Musk himself said that he was depressed at times because how, you know, and putting yourself in that position, you're like top guy, right? You know, in business and everything, you don't essentially have any competition. Like, is it more hard to stomach or think about that fact, right? As you have nobody else to compete with, or the fact that you have billions of people that you have competed with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, no, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I'd rather have no competition than all the competition.
I mean, again, if everything comes easy, then nothing be
That's
worth
true.
it. Then you would go down a spiral again.
But I feel like you'd be able to say no to, like, for me, like if I was the best video production company in the entire Midwest, I would say no to 90% of the projects that came my way.
But that's just
and I'd be
business.
really selective.
I know, but that's just
But
business.
what would that do?
But if you're a smaller business and you need the job to make payroll, sometimes you need to quote that thing a little bit lower and get that project.
Okay.
Right?
But still, I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that a practice of gratitude, and this goes back to kind of what I said in the beginning about know thyself or know yourself, is like the best thing you can do. Not take courses, not have like all of this stuff that you see on social media in the grift economy, right? Just like pick up a book, study, meditate, think for thinking's sake, have deep conversations, right? Mm-hmm. And then figure out, okay, this is who I am. This is what makes me happy. This is what I enjoy doing for this time.
Yeah.
And knowing that it doesn't have to be set in stone, right?
Yeah.
You could be a videographer now, but in 10 years, maybe you want to climb mountains.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
And
like do it. And who cares?
I think I love the thought of just like being grateful and just trying to get better every day and just like trying to be a better person. Like Shaz said, like at least like if you have a shitty day at work and you lost a big project and one of your employees quit, you can go home and be like, at least I'm a good person. At least I'm just still waking up every day and trying to be a good person.
Because there's a lot of people who can't say that. Or worse yet, there's people who convince themselves that they're doing it, but they're not.
Right.
And that's scary. That's a scary way to live.
Yeah.
I think that would be, like I said, something that's applicable to our discussion earlier, where sometimes you just got to be like, you know what? I'm going to give myself gratitude and everything else that I got, no matter what, all the problems.
And it's infectious, you
Yeah.
know, in the sense of like when you're being assessed, let's say by a client, right? Your dream client, let's say, right? And they're debating whether or not they should hire you versus others. I guarantee you it's not all about the quality. Like, yeah, that's very important, right? Mm-hmm. But there's someone else with that same or better quality. What makes you, you? Sometimes they can't put words to it. It's just about the way you treat them. It's about the way you converse. It's about the things you care about that other people don't. It's about the fact that you actually remember their kid's name. Again, not in a manufactured way, because that's who you've made yourself.
I've never been fired by a client that likes me, like as a person. Like if they like me, then like I don't know.
Be somebody
they seem to stick around.
that other people want to be around.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all really good stuff, guys. I think we really got like kind of like philosophical. Yeah. On this podcast, which is kind of cool. And I want to say on the being grateful thing, like I've gone through kind of like sad or dark weeks or whatever. And I just, I make it my goal. It's funny. Like if you wake up, so like sometimes you just wake up and you're just like kind of in a sad, slumpy kind of mood, and you take a shower and you like get ready for the day in your bathroom, right? You can be grateful for like, I want to say like 18 things between like when you walk in your bathroom to when you walk out. Like turn on the shower, you're like, wow, I have water. And you like brush your teeth and you're like, wow, I have good like dental hygiene. I don't have to like worry about like having my teeth falling out.
There's a ton of wins right away.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a first world country.
Yeah.
Even though apparently you want to escape. Just kidding. That itself, gives rise to baseline opportunities that sometimes get lost. The fact that we have so much depression and whatnot in the country, right? It speaks volumes to where people's focus are. And I don't want to, I'm not downplaying the fact that it's a very real thing, right? But I think one of the factors that assists us, all of us, in improving even 1% on that reality that we're all subject to is the act of gratitude, as Goran was saying.
Yeah.
Like focusing on the things that they're so prevalent that we don't even pay attention to them.
Yeah.
And really absorbing what that means for us changes the game. Because, I mean, let's say that, again, God forbid, somebody was on life support and then one day they came off of it and they were just fine again. How would that person feel? Would they even care about any of the other problems that they thought they had before? No, they all just went away. Yeah. That's what matters to them, right?
Well,
so live that way.
Even just think about when you get sick and you're laying in bed and you're sick and your throat hurts and you're stuffy and you can't sleep. You're trying to sleep, but you can't even get comfortable. It's like all you want to do is
breathe.
Yeah. That's the only thing that matters. And it's crazy. And then like you're healthy and you're like driving and you're just like, gosh, I want a better car or I want a better house. And like you start, unless you have that like spectrum. There's this guy who went on Joe Rogan and he like hiked across Antarctica and he talked about that. He's like, I make it my goal to have like put myself through hell once a month just to give myself this like spectrum. Like if you have days that are 0 as being the worst and 10 as being the best, but you only ever get down to like a 5, like that's your worst day is kind of like a 5. He like makes it his goal to get all the way down to 0, like walk across Antarctica for 12 hours straight. That's a 0. That sucked. And then you get in there and the next day you eat a burger and that's like put you all the way up to an 8, you know? It's like crazy, the stuff you take for granted.
Well, it's all relative. So you have to give yourself that relativity. And a lot of people, you know, they pigeonhole themselves into the way they think, the environment that they're in, the people that they're around, the thoughts that they have. That's the most important one. And if you're only living in a spectrum of, you know, A to G in your thoughts, well, you're never going to know the impact of H, I, J, K, and onward.
Yeah.
Right? You have to, like, perhaps maybe not that extreme, but, you know, you have to take that mental hike somewhere else to a different place. And that's done by connecting with people who think differently than you. Because if you're surrounded by people who do what you do and think like you do, you're just going to be copies of each other.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I feel like we definitely ramped up and picked up towards the end of the podcast. Feels like we caught a little flow towards the end. But Shaz, I know you got to leave at 6:00 and it's 5:59 and I always get people out of here on time. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. Literally, like, obviously the location of the podcast is a little bit different today. We're at Goran's house. Just chilling. We'll put the address in the description.
Don't dox me.
No, I'm just kidding. But thank you guys seriously for coming on. Honestly, this means a lot. And yeah, it's honestly, it's tougher to get guests on a podcast than you would imagine. So a lot of people say no.
Point to answer and be present to maybe opportunities and people that may not have to give me anything directly.
Yeah.
So that's another part of, you know, practicing gratitude.
Totally.
Is, you know, what have you done for somebody that's, you know, selfless or as close to being selfless as possible.
Yeah. On that note, I think that's a wrap. Thank you guys for tuning in and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.